This episode of the Critical Careers Podcast is sponsored by CBRE. Hi, I'm Joyce Wadey. Welcome to the Critical Careers Podcast. On today's show, we're going to find out what it takes to steer digital infrastructure at the highest levels. I'm joined by three incredible women who are shaping the future of our industry. Elvira van Bruggen, Regional Director of Site Acquisition for Microsoft, Kirsty Harrower, Partner at Norton Rose Fulbright, and Deborah Shaw, Chief Operating Officer at Apatura. The three of us talk about the fast-paced growth happening in today's data center industry, how we communicate data centers' value to society, and why inclusive decision-making is essential for long-term impact. Let's get started. Enjoy the show.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We were discussing about what we wanted to talk about today, and it was, the idea that came about is, women who are driving tomorrow's infrastructure. And each of these women play a very different role with very different, in very different functions. But as we have come to learn through the Critical Careers book, that every job and every function is just as important as the other, because it's all of what collectively comes together that enables our industry to do what it does. So we have Elvira van Bruggen from Microsoft, and Kirsty Harrower from Norton Rose Fulbright, and Deborah Shaw from Apatura and Energy. Thank you all for joining me today. So why don't you just, share a little bit with us about kind of what your journey has been here.
Where do I start? My background is real estate. I have been passionate about real estate since I was pretty young. Always looking for pricing of houses, what rentals were doing. So when I came out of high school, I did my broker study and started working in real estate, family offices mostly. And at one point I went back, did my bachelor, went back again, did my master's, part-time next to my job. And then I wanted to work in larger industries. And I would like to work in American or international industries, which I really liked. And that's how I ended up at Digital Realty in 2012. Operations, property management, real estate management, then data center management, looking after the Netherlands and France, part of the acquisitions Germany, moved on to SoftLayer, which is now IBM Cloud, led the team there for EMEA on site selection and facilities engineering. And then during COVID, I joined Microsoft as the site acquisition manager at the time for Northern Europe, led Germany and the Netherlands. And 2 years ago, I took on the role to lead the team for Northern Europe and now Central Europe. So growing bits by bits. But yeah, I like the data center industry because it brings together passion of real estate, my expertise, but I like the niche where it's very technical and critical.
Yeah.
The lights can't go out.
Well, and I love that when we've talked about that of, if I think about what I wanted to do when I was a young girl, it's definitely not where I'm sitting today, but that's not a bad thing. I love the fact that you were able to take something that was such a strong passion of yours from an early age, and you've been able to build this, incredible career in some of the world's largest companies and do what you love to do, but in this sort of environment.
I was going to say, I never thought I would be working in data centers or critical environments on real estate. But yeah, it was driven from wanting to be independent, wanting to have my own home. I bought my own house when I was 21, so very young. But that urge has always been there.
Yeah. And I think that is, you laugh saying you never envisioned being here, but I think the majority of us probably in the room never envisioned that we would be in this industry either, because it is a young industry. There are no real set career paths. And I think that's what enables someone with a passion for real estate to sit next to someone who is a lawyer who is next to someone who is the head of marketing. There's many different ways that what you're interested in can find a home here.
That's what I liked when we were having the talk about the book. It doesn't really matter what you do because there's always a space in this industry.
Right.
Because we need all sorts of industry or backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Kirsty, for you, how did your legal pathway lead you to digital infrastructure?
It's a very good question. And the honest answer is that it was by mistake. I kind of fell into it, as I think so many people do in the data center industry. So I qualified, I'm a real estate lawyer, that's my background. And I qualified back in 2006, showing my age. And I just was doing more generalist real estate, like, retail and offices, etc. And then around 2010, I got the opportunity to join the data center team. Didn't know what a data center was, had no idea about all the language that was used, but it seemed pretty interesting and different to what I was doing in the rest of my day job. So I got involved and then really found that I really enjoyed it. I find it more challenging than other areas of law. So as the years have gone by, I've kind of ramped up my exposure. And so about 2018, I decided that I wanted to fully focus on data centers. And so I have done since. So that is my entire, workload now. And it's always keeping me on my toes. I'm sure everyone in the room can identify with that as well. There's always new technology or new requirements, or the size of the requirements are just getting crazy big. So always something to learn, always challenging. And that's what I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then Deborah, what about you? How did you find yourself in digital infrastructure?
Well, like Kirsty, by happy accident, I started my career I've worked for 25 years at two of the biggest infrastructure companies in the world, not necessarily data infrastructure companies, they're in the built environment, so AECOM and Atkins. So I was at Atkins for 15 years. I worked my way through the organisation, ended up running a small business in the Southwest, like a creative agency. Moved over to AECOM, went to the Middle East for a bit, came back, headed up brand. My final role at AECOM was Global Head of Brand and Digital Marketing. Very much about storytelling, so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I brought over into this sector. Spent a little bit of time at a FTSE 100 doing manufacturing and engineering, and then decided to become a consultant. And then started work for Apatura. 1 day a week turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into a full-time job, and actually I'm absolutely loving it. So I work with a whole diverse group of people and I should probably explain what Apatura do, because you obviously know what these companies do. So we are in the energy storage kind of business. We take renewable energy, we store it in big batteries. And alongside that, about a year and a half ago, we pivoted into the data center industry. So typically, we provide powered land. So we have our background as a business is in planning, and we get planning permission. We have land agreements or land options, and we have grid agreements with National Grid. So we've got 46 projects around the UK, 9 data center sites, mostly in Scotland, actually, the data center sites. But that's kind of how my career has kind of woven through into data centers. And I was saying about the stakeholder piece, I work with communities because we have to get planning permission. So I work really closely with people that are going to be living alongside them, all the way up to doing government relations and trying to influence policy.
So, Kirsty, you said something important when you were just giving your introduction about the fact that, how fast things are changing and how hard it is to keep up the pace. In doing what you guys do, like, how do you plan for that? How do you plan for an industry that the pace can be somewhat relentless and, evolving and changing, and innovation never stops? So, like, Elvira, from your perspective, what do you do as part of your team to try to stay ahead of that, or to keep up with it?
I was going to say, sometimes that's difficult because you have environmental changes, legal requirements, different per country. So you need to stay ahead of that. You need to improve on sustainability all the time. And even though I'm on the lease acquisition team, not land, so it's also making sure that the people that we work with, the lease providers that are in the business, that they meet those requirements, and that we can team up on how we meet those requirements. But it's also indeed the technical requirements from what our customers need and how we facilitate that. And everybody sees now the improvements or the upscaling with AI, and it comes with a complete different set of technical requirements. And if you look at when we start leasing projects to when we actually get inside a building, sometimes there's 2-3 years in between, and we don't even know what technology is going to bring.
Yeah.
3 months from now. So it's making sure that we are able to adapt, to be flexible, and that's challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are trying to find our ways there.
Yeah, it's a little hard to plan for 3 years down the road when everything changes as quickly as it does, for sure.
Yeah, so it's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of planning, it's finding creative ways on how to do that. So again, keep learning, keep adjusting, keep growing. Every day is different.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. If you like consistency and monotony,
This is not
the industry for you. So Kirsty, when we were talking the other night, when the four of us were chatting, and you were saying, that's the interesting part from the legal perspective, is so much of the time on the regulation side, on the government side, you guys are that side of it is lagging so far behind where the technology is, where all of the companies in this room, what we're all working on. How do you guide your customers on that, or your clients on that, when the multiple audiences you have to talk to have very different timescales?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really challenging. And I think lawyers quite often get a bad rep because they're kind of seen as the blocker. It goes into legals and it all slows down. But I think there is some truth in that, in terms of the sort of overarching regulatory piece, because the law really struggles to keep up, I think, with the pace of change. And the governments as well seem to be struggling to keep up as well with the requirements and the need for speed of delivery. So it is definitely a challenge. We do a lot of horizon scanning for our clients to try and tell them what's coming down the road. And that's a really important role. But equally, I think we have a role to play in liaising with the government. People like Tech UK, I see you, are doing a great job of really that education piece as well, because I think there's people within central government who are also kind of learning pretty quick as to the requirements of the industry and what they need. But just taking an example, like SMRs, for example, everyone's getting really excited about SMRs, and are they going to be one of the solutions that might work for power delivery in the future? But in terms of the regulatory piece, that's way, way, way behind. Currently, where the UK regulations at is that if you have an SMR, then you have to comply with all of the laws that apply to a massive nuclear power station. So that's not really going to work. So there's so many different aspects and so many different areas of law that feed into data centers. But it's quite challenging to keep abreast of all of the changes that are needed. But we try.
And that is the challenging part, because, people who are making the policy decisions are not the technical experts in any way, shape, or form, yet they have to make a decision that makes sense for, today, makes sense for the future. And there's a lot of education that has to go on along that. So, I mean, Deborah, like you had mentioned, talked about storytelling in the communities and stuff. What do you guys see, because of where you're, from a policy perspective, when you're going into these different communities, what is your best practices that you kind of follow to help pave that road a little bit, or make some of these deployments easier?
Yeah, well, it's different depending on what community you're going into. So one of the projects that we're working on at the moment is in Ravenscraig. So I don't know if you guys have heard of that. That it was Europe's largest, ex-largest strip mill in Scotland. It was closed down in like 1994, I think. It's kind of been empty. There is a broader master plan there, but that area is in desperate need of regeneration. Lots of jobs were lost, and it's basically a complete brownfield site, and it would be fabulous for the local community to have the GVA come in, the capital investment. There will be jobs. So that one's kind of quite an easy sell, because we're talking about the benefits to the community. Alongside that, there will be community benefit funds for the community to do stuff with. So that is, for that particular community, they were really positive about it. But then we're looking at another site, and it's not a brownfield site. So you've got a kind of different story in a more affluent area. You've kind of got a different story to tell to that community. So there isn't a cookie cutter approach. Every story is different, and you kind of need to map out your stakeholders, really dig deep under the skin in terms of what their concerns will be, and try to answer those questions up front.
Yeah, I think were you saying, was it the Scotland where like the support in the community was
that was
ridiculously positive
yeah.
number.
So for all of the public consultations that we've ever done, obviously not many people want a data center in their backyard or near to where they live. But this particular site, I mean, there aren't houses adjacent to the site, but 75% of the folk around this site were supportive of the development there, which was incredible.
Which is an amazing number.
And actually, the people that weren't supportive were, are there actually going to be the jobs there for us? That's what the concerns were, and not that there was going to be a data centre there, and it wasn't about the noise, which is often what the other concerns would be in other places.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's an incredible number, especially when you see some of the headlines that are, put out there that lead you to believe that everybody hates data centers, and that and to hear that 75% of the community were supportive of a project is great.
Also, to your point, there's myth busting to be done, like water usage, like data centers use an inordinate amount of water. That's not the case. So we're trying to dispel some of those myths in some of the either articles that we put out there, or talking to these people one-on-one, or whatever, depending on how we approach that in terms of a content perspective.
And power is a big issue. Power is one of the key issues that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. What kind of conversations are you having on that, on the UK grid reform?
Yeah, so obviously we're going through grid reform at the moment. Gate 2 is happening. I think we're going to hear back, I think it's at the end of October, November. So the industry is kind of up in the air from that perspective. But on the other flip side of that, so that's one challenge, you've also got this cost of power issue, which Care, actually, I'll give them a good shout out because they've done an amazing campaign around that. But actually, if you think back to when Trump was here and there were all those massive announcements about capital investment, I think it was 40 billion was the number that was flying about. Actually, that could be so much higher if the cost of power wasn't so expensive. So you think the companies that are going to come and deliver in data center companies or hyperscalers that need to be in this country are here because they need to be. Actually, they could go and put their data centers maybe over in the Nordics, where it's going to be an awful lot cheaper in terms of power. Actually, if our power was similar to theirs in terms of cost, then why wouldn't they come here? And Scotland's a great place for that because it's cooler. There's lots of different, there's more land, more availability. It's north of the B6 boundary, which means power is available. There's renewables up there. So, cost of power is a massive issue. And then you've got the grid reform thing going on too.
Yeah. So, Elvira, in terms of site selection and the other countries in Europe and stuff, what are some of the trends that you're kind of encountering on a daily basis, and when it comes to power?
It not being available, or it not being available for the next coming 10 years on the places where we need to be. So we're either trying to look at alternative solutions, or we are trying to look at alternative locations. So at the moment we're looking power first.
Yeah.
Where it used to be, real estate normally is location, location, location. And for us, it is power, fiber, and connectivity, more or less.
Yeah.
So it's very much power driven, where power available.
And where you're based in the Netherlands too. I mean, you guys have had your own whole journey of data centers and power playing a major issue into that as well.
And that's where storytelling also comes back, because people tell you, well, because everybody's building these data centers, we cannot build houses because the houses cannot be powered up because there's no electricity for new residential housing. So you see that there's and that gets you to a sentiment that is negative to the data center industry. But then I typically laugh about it and I say, well, then don't use your phone, don't use your computer, and stop going to the supermarket, don't call 911 or whatever, because everything is connected with each other.
Right. And I think that's a big part of, how we tell that story. What are the things that we need to be saying? Because we do spend so much time. And, if you look at every headline that shows up in, whether it's the trade press or it is, mainstream media, it's always talking about the megawatts of a data center campus. People don't understand that outside of this room. So what do we need to be saying? What should we be talking about instead?
That it's not just cat videos, and that actually everything we do in life today is going through a data center one way or another. Right. I mean, you have your iPhone, you have your smartphone or your laptop, or you work from home, and if you watch television, it doesn't matter. If you go to the groceries, you tap your card or your PIN or whatever. Everything goes through data centers. It's all data. I mean, hospitals can't be running, airports can't be opening. I mean, if you see the impact of a data center going down and impact to airports,
Yeah.
that they need to shut down, it's that massive. Air conditionings won't be working. So it's
Right.
everything goes through data centers these days. And the more we store, because we don't like to lose data, the more data is needed to be stored. So more data centers are needed. And with AI, it's only increasing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, and Kirsty, when we were talking, you brought up a good point about the fact that and Elvira just touched on it as well, about that idea of personal responsibility in all of this. How do we help people make that connection?
I think it goes back to that education piece and the messaging that you're doing and the rest of the industry is doing, but we need to do more of it, I think, because there does seem to be this disconnect between people's own usage of, digital devices and all of the services that Elvira just mentioned. That obviously is powered by data centers. So they're not this negative thing. They are doing some really positive work here. And I just think we as an industry need to be getting that messaging out there. And so campaigns like the ones that KO have been doing are really helpful for that.
Yeah. And I mean, Deborah, from, because you sit next to the industry, is there anything that you see, or are there any other, like in your other, infrastructure roles that you've been in, has there been anything that you found effective in those that could potentially make a difference for the data center industry as well?
I think I've been saying the same message. I think it is about storytelling. So it's about figuring out who your audience is and the message that you want them to take away. And going back to your point, Kirsty, when we do these public consultations, one of the first things that we talk to folk about is, what is a data center? So they don't understand. They see that, they think they're like big Amazon warehouses where all of the packages and stuff come out. And well, actually, you need it for your NHS, you need it for your banking, you need it for your cat videos, endless scrolling on TikTok, whatever it is. Like, they are now critical national infrastructure. So they are like required. We can't operate in life without them. And then the storytelling to a different kind of audience, the message would be completely different.
Yeah.
I wonder if historically we haven't really helped ourselves though, right? Because it's been quite secretive industry and we haven't maybe invited people in to kind of come and see and engage with us. So I think that's definitely changing now. But maybe if we are, like, the buildings are maybe more visible, or we think about the design elements more, then it might be that there's a greater level of acceptance and understanding. If they're next to our communities or nearer to, then there might be more engagement.
Well, and that was one of the things that I loved about one of my conversations for the book with one of the women who is here today, but who's an architect, and having that conversation about thinking outside the box about what does the design of the data center look like, and where is it located? And is there can it be co-located with another industry who has similar functionality needs and that kind of stuff? And just really that, from that forward-looking perspective, it's really an incredible, there's so much potential and there's so much opportunity coming in that way, that was an incredibly interesting conversation on that. So I think there's definitely some thinking to be done for that part of it. So then as we go down this, for all of us, we're 4 women sitting here on the stage. We've all built careers in this industry. What else would you like to start to see happening for women in this industry moving forward?
I think what is good with more women in the industry, when I joined digital and there wasn't that many there, now you see it more and more. So I think that's good. That's a positive. Over 13 years, I think we can do much more still, starting younger and also taking credits for what we're doing. We're bringing a lot of diversity and a lot of creativity in this industry. So I think we should keep spreading that message as well, to make sure that everybody, like we said, it doesn't matter what you do, what your background is. There's always something that you can do if you like the industry.
Yeah.
If you're willing to keep learning and keep growing.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you enjoy a fast-paced environment, you like to learn, and you're, looking for things to be kind of
there's
constantly changing.
And there's so many smart people in this industry. and
Absolutely.
that is what I enjoy mostly as well. And within Microsoft as well. I mean, to get to work with some of the smartest in the industry, whether it's on our lease provider side or in-house or outside counsel or inside counsel, it doesn't matter. There's so many smart people, and you can learn from each other every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kirsty, what do you think is why is inclusive leadership so important as this industry moves to the next phase?
From a personal perspective, in real estate, kind of the more traditional real estate, that's a very male dominated area as well. And then I've kind of moved into data centers, and was traditionally male dominated as well. So I didn't necessarily have any female mentors or people to kind of show me the way or give me some tips along the way. So I think I'm trying to take responsibility for that as I'm more senior and doing more mentoring work, and kind of bringing the next generation along for the ride as well. I mean, Katrina's here today. She's doing amazing stuff with her JLL speaker series, and teaching the next gen about, finding their voice and being on panels and things. And it might seem scary, which it is, by the way. But you have to push through that and make sure that your voice is heard. So again, I think initiatives like that are crucial.
And I do think that was one of the things that I just loved hearing from all the women as we did the book, was about how supportive everybody feels the industry is, that they get incredible support from their female colleagues. They get great support from their male colleagues. The women who are more senior than them in the industry offer a helping hand. There's not that sense of, well, we had to go through this, so therefore you do too. So, I mean, I think that aspect of it is a really key part of it to just kind of lay the pathway for the industry moving forward, for sure.
Definitely. I think if you've been on the receiving end of that treatment as well, then it makes you want to make sure that you're bringing the next generation along with you, rather than sort of that old adage about bringing the ladder up behind you.
Right. So, and then Deborah, what do you think are some of the characteristics or the qualities that women bring to the table that we should try to tap into more?
Yeah, well, I think women have, I'm probably not going to go down very well with the men in the room, maybe slightly more empathetic. I think, I'm not quite sure how to say this. I should know how to say this because I work in communications. I think we bring more empathy. I would say we can read a room maybe better. We can read body language slightly better, I think. But I think that aside, I think bringing the young ones up through the industry for senior women to give the younger ones a helping hand, whether it's mentoring them, whether it's providing time to local colleges or communities in terms of helping with curriculum, or helping them come into the office for a day, apprenticeships. There's loads of different ways, and with whether you're looking at corporate responsibility and funding, whether there's stuff that as businesses we can fund to help the next level of females and males come up through the industry. And I think when I was a kid, AI didn't exist. We had a dial-up thing on our internet that made a funny noise that took ages to get online. But I've got a daughter, she's just turned 4. She's growing up in a world that I couldn't have even conceived when I was growing up. And she's going to need way different skills to the ones that I needed. So if collectively we can go into our communities and our schools and our colleges and help and pass on the knowledge that we've got, I think we would be doing a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
With empathy, as they say.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you all for joining me today. I know, we threw a lot of curveballs at you of, a panel, like Kirsty said, no pressure there. And then, we've had the pleasure of doing a live audience podcast session, which I really appreciate everyone in the room taking the time and sitting and listening with us and everything. And the 3 of you for being my guinea pigs in that regard of doing that. So, so thank you all very much. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Critical Careers. A special thank you to our sponsor, CBRE, for their support in helping us share the stories of the people shaping the future of digital infrastructure.
To learn more about CBRE, visit www.cbre.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, share, and follow the podcast. Thanks for listening.